Next one, we've got a 2023 built Texas rental leased through 2029. This is when I was being a little bit silly on the title of the deal blast that went out. I said it's got a lease that'll outlive your car. Because this one, the lease is already locked in until 2029, until December of 2029, that's a little nuts. I don't think I've ever seen even these long-term build-to-rent communities where they're actively looking for 24 and 36-month leases. I don't think I've ever seen one with a rental in place for that long. That could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing depending on how you approach the deal. Me personally, a 2024 build with no major capex items in a good market. This is the far north side of Houston. So I think that you'll ultimately have a lot of success in growth along I-45 as you get north of the Woodlands and Conroe. So I think you're actually going to do really well in terms of appreciation. You have a tenant in place who's going to force you, not necessarily force, but they're going to make it much harder to sell this thing in the next 3 to 5 years. It's almost like a forced hold that is still cash flowing positive. Your cash on cash return with a tenant in place already paying $22.50 is $11.37. You could cash on cash is a funny number because you can jack with it. You can manipulate it pretty easily by going with a lower down payment or a higher down payment or a different type of financing where you have to pay a 7.5% interest rate, or you get a really sweetheart deal on financing and you do a big buy down and you get down to like below 6. So this number, the cash on cash return, cash needed numbers, they could be manipulated, but what doesn't get manipulated is cap rate. It's just based off of the carrying cost, what is actually required to perform with this asset. So if you're managing on your own, notice I don't have a management line item here, and the tenant is responsible for lawn care. That only leaves taxes, insurance, and then HOA. If you wanted to go ahead and set aside cash for, let's say, capex items, I usually recommend setting that aside on the front end rather than, say, taking $200 a month out of the cash flow and setting that aside. We can get more into why my way is better than the way most people on like a blog are going to do it. But we'll go into that later. But anyway, 2029 lease renews. This thing has all new capex items. Obviously, it was built in 2023. A-grade asset, A-grade market. Another one of these turnkey single-family homes, long-term tenant already in place, selling far below fair market value. I think the comps when I ran this one were closer to $250,000. So you've got a 10% walk-in equity position. If you've read the book on Texas real estate investing, you know I love that leapfrog methodology. This is the quintessential example of that. This is awesome. This is what everybody should be looking for, especially if you're a newer investor just getting into the business. This one is going to alleviate those 4 major risk variables: asset quality, neighborhood quality, cash flow, and vacancy risk. This one eliminates that for a long period of time. And I think you'll be really set up for success for a nice long-term 5 to 7 year hold before you go ahead and liquidate it, extract your equity, and move it into the asset at that time in year 2033 that's more appropriate for your portfolio.